Welcome to Playing Every Final Fantasy Kinda Gaiden, a vlog series covering spin-offs, alternate versions, and anything that does not fit into the format of the main show. Today, we are talking about Final Fantasy II on the Famicom, specifically the Chaos Rush translation from 2020. Today, I am drinking a mango bubbly. The big takeaway. Everyone you have listened to talk about this game has lied to you, whether intentionally or not. I count myself among them. The biggest thing that is missed by not playing all of the NES Final Fantasies is that you do not realize the presentational jumps that the series goes through between all three games. Like, Final Fantasy II Famicom is so much snappier, it's so much prettier, it has more special effects, it has a significantly better UI. It's not the Final Fantasy UI yet, but it's really just like one color job away from being the one we know of. And even something that is kind of bespoke to this game in particular is that when you hit your results screen, so to speak, for these games, your party will walk across the screen after they're done. And that doesn't show up in any other game, nor does that show up in like the Pixel Remaster, for example. So we're not there yet. But this is one gigantic step closer to the Final Fantasy UI that is known and loved. Now, Final Fantasy II requires knowledge, even more than the first game, that capital K knowledge. But this time, it's kind of for different reasons. Whereas Final Fantasy I, you needed knowledge to get around the bugs and the glitches and the things that just don't work. Final Fantasy II still has lots of new bugs, but they're like slightly of a different manner this time. There are still some buggy spells. Protect, for example, you can cast it on anyone, but it only works on the person who actually has the ability to cast it. Dispel straight up doesn't work. Ultima almost purposefully doesn't level correctly. I've actually seen some people say that, like, oh, maybe it's a subversive thing that Ultima doesn't work the way you would think it is, but it doesn't work the way you would think it does. You can dual wield in this game, and it doesn't work the way you think it does either, but it does still have the effects of any offhand weapon you would have, so like it half works, if that makes sense. But more specifically, the things that people are going to recommend are the action select bug. The game's kind of infamous glitch where after inputting an action but not finishing the turn to then fire off all those actions, you will get the skill experience for doing something without actually firing it off. Ergo, if you want to then level a spell by casting it, canceling, casting it, canceling, casting it, canceling, you will get all of the experience for doing it as many times as you want to without firing off that turn. However, there's actually I wouldn't call this a glitch, this might just be something intended. There's a first time magic bonus as well. The first time you cast a magic spell in that battle, you get a slightly bit more experience points, and then every other time you cast it, it's leveled off to a standard amount. So it will actually encourage you to flip through your spells per each battle instead of just casting fire as many times as possible. If you really want to level fire, you can just do that, but if you want to level more things, then it's actually a bit more, just a slight bit more optimal to cycle your spells every battle. Just try and cast as many as you can because you get a bit more for each time you cast it the first time. Now, people are going to talk about this action select bug a lot, and the way that you level FF2 by attacking your party, and then that's how you like level your HP as an exploit. I'm here to tell you, you don't fucking need to do that. You don't need to do that to play this game. People are going to be like, oh, it's so difficult, you have to exploit the game, you have to use the bugs against it. No, fucking no, you don't. You still need that capital K knowledge for weapons and armor, and if spells are black or white magic, it won't tell you that. That one's a fucking bear to deal with. But outside of that, you can play this game normally. It's not that difficult or that crazy. Primarily, you'll use that knowledge to figure out for how fucky leveling can work at times. You should probably start leveling immediately, and you should start leveling with a plan. As much as this game does allow you to kind of do anything with your stats, it probably is going to just like level you in a really lumpy way if you try to be more than just a couple things at once. There is this sense that you need to level around counteracting leveling stats. You know how certain stats will go up, but some will go down. And I mentioned it in the original video, that sounds very scary. That sounds like something that's going to be really, really daunting to deal with, but in reality, it does kind of stop after a while, especially if you're on a bit more of a straight, narrow path. I can't say for certain if you're juggling different types of weapons and trying to use black and white magic that it's going to be the same. I think that is an instance where a lot of people can get tripped up and they can have their stats lower where they don't want them to. But if you have a goal in mind, if you're just going to say this person's going to be a black mage and they're going to use knives, the points of friction with counteracting stats and stats going down, that really does stop at a certain level and it doesn't bother you anymore. Probably the most dire hidden stat or mechanic in this game is magic penalty. This is something that will completely screw you up if you don't know about it. Certain armors will have a percentage penalty against magic. There's nothing in the game that tells you that. You have to find that from an outside source if you want to know the exact parameters for them. And so that means that, like, if you're trying to be a mage, which it's Final Fantasy 2, you probably are going to have at least 1 to 2 people in your party who are trying to be a mage. You have to be kind of critical about what armor you give them, because like a heavy armor is going to do like 70% magic penalty, and that's dire. That's so painful. But there's nothing in the game that says that. There's no magic penalty stat for your armor. You have to find that out yourself. The amount of items in this game has increased like tenfold from Final Fantasy 1. You now have all of the Final Fantasy items you would expect, be that your healing consumables or your wackety-smackety like single-use items. However, using items is still super fucked up in this game. You assign 2 items per character that they can only use on themselves in battle. Following that logic, that means that yes, we now have Phoenix Downs. No, they do not work properly, because you can only cast them on yourselves. However, some items can be used like spell equipment, where they will cast a spell on use. And there's a chance you can cast it multiple times because they will have a break percentage on their use. So if you get an item that causes Quake, you can realistically use it a couple times, maybe more than a couple times, before it randomly breaks. Items do not stack anymore. You can't go in and just buy 99 potions. And this is a little bit of a pisser because your inventory space in this game gets crowded extremely fast. Not only does it get crowded really fast, but it gets crowded with your key items. By the end of the game, 40, maybe 50% of your inventory is just your key items that you need to have on you or you can't get rid of. This is the one version of Final Fantasy where it felt like rows super duper matter outside of 4, you know, how 4 works. But rows are such a big deal in this game because instead of them being like things that are more effective in the front row and things are less effective in the back row, it's instead that things work in the front row and they don't work in the back row, or vice versa. So if you want to be attacking with any sort of physical sword or anything, you need to be in the front row. It won't work if you're in the back row. You can't attack anything. You will never hit it. Likewise, enemies have their own rows. The first box of 4, like a 2x2 grid of enemies on your screen, is the front row. You can only attack those 4, and you need to move that box back and back before you can reach anyone else with your physical attacks. But your magic can go beyond that row. And so because of that, you end up with a really, really tactical way of doing battles, where you have your rows and your opponent's rows, and you need to find a way to get past both of them to do things you want to do. And by saying doing things you want to do, what I mean is that I've complained in the past about how your guest characters show up and they have no maximum HP. They have next to nothing. Well, what you can do in this game, I figured this out myself. You can put your entire party in the back row, and then you can keep your guest character in the front row. Your back party is not going to get attacked because they can't even be targeted half the time. And your guest character is going to be the one who's just taking all the damage, which means, because it's Final Fantasy 2, they're gaining all the HP at the end of battles. You can just grind up your guest characters when you get them up to where you need to be, while having people in the back row focus on leveling their magic, or leveling their bow skills, or leveling their healing magic. It's actually super, super engaging. I will say that the one problem with the rows is that this is the biggest point of friction to still having no auto targets. In Final Fantasy 1, I said that having no auto target actually makes that game more fun, and I will say that this is still operating under that idea, but you start to feel the friction a little bit more when you have no way to auto target through that front row. You kind of want to be knocking people back, and you can't do it in this game yet. The encounter rate feels sometimes low, but sometimes really high. It is obviously worse when you go into the doors of nothing, but I mind it significantly less when playing the Famicom version because battling is so much fun. Because of how leveling works, specifically magic leveling, battles are really fun. They're engaging, they're productive. You can do something in each battle. You don't just like press A through them and get your experience at the end. You go into battle and you see what's going on and you go, I can level this, this, and this. Or I can maybe try and focus on this, this, and this for people getting health or something. It's not mindless. It's engaging and fun. Grinding is productive and enjoyable. It's really, really impressive for what is still a very early JRPG on the Famicom. You can also kind of break the curve of this game's spell structure by battling the magicians. Magicians are just a regular enemy in the world, but on defeat, sometimes they will drop a higher level magic, and you can teach that to someone. And in my playthrough, my black mage learned Berserk, which is the like temper, which is like the attack up spell, really, really early. I was like, oh, hell yeah. And so I just like leveled that the rest of the game. And by the time I got to the end of the game, I could just like spell cast people with Berserk and they do crazy damage. And I was like, this is amazing. And I know that if I ever played the game again, I wouldn't have a guaranteed shot to learn Berserk that early. I'd have to do something else. It was really emergent. It was a unique experience on just that playthrough. You never have that can we get on with it moment because everything is so well paced and so engaging that you just don't feel like you're spinning your wheels doing something. And even, I should mention the guest characters again, they don't feel as weak as they do in Pixel Remaster. They actually felt a lot stronger when it came in. Like Yosef, his first time in Pixel Remaster, I was like, this guy's just a fucking meat shield. But in Famicom, he was beating ass pretty easily. I was actually surprised at how many of these guys were effective from the jump, health pool issues aside. Story pacing, on the other hand, would be a little bit worse because it doesn't really give you as much direction when things need to change. Like after you complete a task, it kind of just boils down to, okay, well, you should probably go back to see Hilda. She'll give you something new. So it doesn't really feel like there's a good loop of like, I did a thing, time to go back to Hilda. It's kind of like, thing happened. Oh, I should go back to Hilda. But because of how much fun I was having with this game, a game that, again, I must stress, everyone's going to tell you is the worst Final Fantasy. They're wrong. I actually beat this game. I beat the Emperor without the Blood Sword cheese strat. I actually did it normal because I was so engaged with the game that once I got to the Emperor, I had the Blood Sword. I was like, well, if I need to, I will. But I just beat him normally because I was leveling so well, because I was engaged so much in the act of like leveling my characters. I just beat him the way you would normally do so. I didn't need to glitch him or cheese him or do anything cheap. It's so impressive. This game feels a little too big and complicated for what the Famicom can really do, but it's doing so much of that so impressively. Like a better game, a more advanced game, would show you magic penalty on your armor. Final Fantasy 2 on Famicom can't do that, but so many other things it can do, and it does it well. But because there's those things it can't show yet, I understand why so many people boot up Final Fantasy 2. They have no access to a manual. The manual's in Japanese. There's not very many guides explaining this game. There are now, but old internet writers, when they would boot up Final Fantasy 2, they would not have that type of knowledge, that capital K knowledge on their hands to help them through that. And so it makes sense why so many people would come through this game and go like, wow, that game's fucking shit. The game makes no sense. The game's difficult as all hell. I had to cheese and glitch the game to hell and back just to beat it. I understand why they would think that, but they're wrong. If you know what you're doing, if you have the prerequisite knowledge that might just be in the Japanese manual if we English speakers had access to it. I can't say it for certain it's there, but it might be. It might just be there. We don't know. If you had that knowledge, this game is totally playable. Totally playable. And unlike Final Fantasy 1 NES to Final Fantasy 1 Pixel Remaster, I do not think this invalidates Final Fantasy 2 Pixel Remaster. This game is still good in different ways. I think you can play both those games and have different and still enjoyable experiences. Unless Final Fantasy 3 Famicom wows me, and this is a spoiler, it won't. This is the best NES Final Fantasy by a landslide, and right now, I can tell you this, it's my third favorite Final Fantasy ever. As always, be good to each other, explore your creativity. See you next time.